night, you happily miserable accursed. Tuesday, April 22nd, with the Curse of Politics panel, Kory Teneycke, Scott Reid, Jordan Leichnitz, yours truly, David Herle, here to break down what happened in the campaign yesterday and what might come forward. We're all enthused. It's early in the morning. We're all excited, right? Scott, you do not look excited. Meet the energy level. Meet the moment.
So first of all, terrific comeback by the Habs and devastating loss in overtime. So that put bad thoughts into my head before I went to sleep. And then I dreamt I had a flat tire, which I felt, and I couldn't, and it was in front of a laundromat, and I couldn't get my car moved. And the guys who ran the laundromat, I think, might have done it, and they were really big assholes to me. And I felt like it was some kind of metaphor for the platform release. And I don't, my room full of worries I will see what Polera has to share with us today and what other polling, but my room full of worries has turned into a wing full of worries. No, a house full of worries, a Winnebago full of worries, and I'm driving it around on a flat tire, waiting for this goddamn campaign to please end.
Right. I think actually you should turn it into a closet full of worries, but we'll get to that in a second. Hey, people, who's here with us today on the YouTube machine and the podcast apps and all that is Nick Taylor-Vasey from Politico. Hello, Nick.
Going on, I like that Nick Taylor-Vasey. He's got all kinds of thoughts.
One of the two best Politico reporters you're going to talk to. Top two.
Oh, I know, but we won't.
It was close, but yeah, top two.
Yeah. So, what's Politico have to say today, man? What's in the playbook?
Well, today is Conservative Platform Day. So today we learn the magic of Pierre Poilievre and the plan he has for this country and the numbers that power it. We got a few hints of that yesterday when he answered questions about his.
I'm excited to learn just how much waste and inefficiency there is in government.
That's right. How much bureaucracy there is, and how bloated it is, and what he's going to do about it. That's right. Yeah. And where he's going to find $10 billion in consultants to axe. So we're looking forward to details on that today.
Right. Anybody here in trouble? No. Okay.
Different kind of consulting.
No danger there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Mark Carney's in
where they're at. Yeah.
Yeah. Mark Carney's in Quebec today, as predicted on this pod just yesterday. He is spending an entire day just to the west of the Maritimes. He's in Quebec, where he's starting in Quebec City.
That's how they think of themselves, Quebecers. They say, just call us the west of the Maritimes.
Well, you can see him moving. He's shifting slowly to the west with as the sun rises and slowly sets. He's stopping at Trois-Rivières, which is well, you know what I mean, Scott. You're doing your confusing hand signals.
Sort of,
you get my point.
It's like a Mayan calendar or something. Okay, you got me confused.
The Globe recently visited Trois-Rivières, which that's how you know it's close. Is that they wrote a feature story about how the Liberals want to win that riding.
Is it a three-way race in Trois-Rivières? Okay, sorry. Do we charge royalties, David? Do I get...
God, the number of dad jokes here.
We used to be able to.
What's in your coffee?
The energy level just spiked. This is amazing.
Yeah.
Man, you inspired me.
And then Carney finishes the day in Laval at a rally.
Did I see he's doing 5 events today?
I know of at least 4, but who's to stop him from a 5th?
Right. Okay.
And Poilievre is in the GTA. That's where he's announcing his platform. He's in Woodbridge, and then at the end of the day, he's at a place on a road called Laborers Way, which is a big old hint that he's at a union facility, LiUNA. I'm going to read now Jordan's expressions for labor support of Pierre Poilievre and what it means and does not mean.
Well, LiUNA's pretty isolated. They're the only major union that is supporting them.
Sure.
That's right.
And then Jagmeet Singh is still out west. He's in Vancouver. He is, in fact, also today, not just in Vancouver proper, but he is in Burnaby as well, where he is himself running for re-election. And then he's finishing the day in Edmonton, Alberta. He's going back to Alberta. And the guest of honor tonight is a former premier named Rachel Notley.
But not the current leader, Naheed Nenshi.
But not the current leader. No. But the beloved former leader. And that counts for something.
Yeah. What about
Kory,
what's Mike
Harcourt
saying?
Win a seat?
Mike Harcourt wrote a piece and endorsed Mark Carney the other day.
Yeah.
Hey, Kory, do you think Singh wants to win a seat?
I'm sure he wants to win a seat. Whether he will or not, I don't know. It's maybe the odds are a little
Why are
higher.
you sure he wants to win it? Like, wouldn't you want to make the cleanest exit out of town possible?
That would be a great campaign
I don't
day.
think he's going to
I
have
think people
trouble.
always like choice.
I don't think there's going to be a lot of choice in what happens to him after the campaign, but I'll defer to Jordan on that. Look, things are very grim for the NDP. I don't know. I still think that, we'll see what the tracking polling and stuff is today, but there's some growth there for the NDP at the expense of the Liberals. I assume that a lot of that's happening in BC. But can they stick the landing, the Marit Stiles landing of convincing progressive voters in areas where they have incumbency that they're the strongest alternative to a conservative government? I think that's the message for them, and we'll see what happens, how compelling that is. But it's a pretty steep hill they have to climb still.
Yeah.
Although they're doing better this week than they have for the last 3. So I think things are looking
up within margin of error.
Well, but persistently, and it's better than it was, right?
That's like saying I've been getting up more consistently at 6 a.m.
Well, you have actually, Kory. Good job
in the last few days, but it doesn't.
I did want to award you a sticker for that. That's great.
All right, Nick. Anything more?
No, I just love when you let me stick around for some of the bickering. It's great. I get to see it in real time.
All right, and you're on the road tomorrow. Where are you going?
I'm going to Toronto. I'm going to
Jesus.
For the get them Dr. Noyan jobs.
The public policy forum is what I'm primarily headed to, but I'm going to stick around.
Oh, that's where the election will be decided.
That's right.
That is for fucking sure.
What did you do into whom? Like, whom did you do it to have to go suffer through that event?
You guys are mean.
In the public policy forum. Line up for 2 hours to get a drink.
That is the most self-congratulatory fucking establishment event possible. It's
way to go,
David. Wretch-worthy.
I heard they were thinking of honoring us next year.
Oh my God, all these people patting themselves on the back for their public spiritedness. Christ almighty.
And the things I would like to say. Anyway, I'm staying in the city.
Come back tomorrow and say them.
So after that, I can go see some GTA politicking for the balance of the week. And that'll be more interesting than downtown Toronto for sure. I'll say that much right now in front of you.
All right.
While we're recording.
Well, thanks for all your help, Nick, and we'll see you tomorrow.
All right, see you.
So, our sponsor, CN, has been using its spots on this podcast lately to push for reform as an antidote to the trade war that has dissipated trillions of dollars in wealth and scared the living daylights out of just about everyone. Today, the railway would like to advance a concrete suggestion, or perhaps even a critical one. It involves the metals and minerals crucial for the manufacture of everything from cars to mobile phones to solar panels to medical and military applications to aerospace development. Here's the thing. Canada is in a position to compete. Canada could become a critical minerals power. It could, over time, become the main Western source of the minerals. Canada has tremendous reserves of the minerals, which it has left in the ground. Canada has vast unpopulated spaces, hydroelectric power, engineering talent, deep water ports, and, CN would modestly point out, a sophisticated railway network to carry the minerals from mines to processing plants to the markets that desperately need them. Further, creating a critical mineral industry in Canada would buy an important seat at the table of Western powers. At a guess, Canada's First Nations would be excellent partners in Canadian critical mineral development. Accomplishing something this big would take political will and determination. Yes, it would require regulatory and tax policy reform, but imagine the outcome, done right. CN respectfully suggests now is the time to act with boldness and resolve. Its trains are ready to roll. Polara Polling is brought to you by Enbridge, a leading Canadian energy infrastructure company, reliably and affordably fueling your quality of life and powering our economy. Drum roll.
from
Polaris data. 2,195 interviews, mix of live interviewer and online, from Wednesday, April 16th through to Monday, April 21st. 44 Liberal, 36 Conservative, 8 NDP, 7 Bloc, Green 2, PPC 2.
What's happening in Quebec?
Ontario, 50, 38, 8.
oof.
Quebec, and this is the story. This is now the campaign, folks. Actually, this campaign isn't about Pierre Poilievre anymore. It's about Yves Blanchette. And because the rest of this, what matters in this campaign is going to happen in Quebec. And that is Liberal 39, Bloc 30, Conservative 21. So the Liberals had a 16-point lead at one point in Quebec, and that's now 9. Still a better position for the Liberals than they were in 2021, but not the number that they were looking at a couple of weeks ago. And when I say that's the important thing about the election, is because I think that the winner of the election's been decided, but Quebec will decide whether it's a majority or not. And that is in a little bit of doubt right now.
What about
So
BC?
here's a question. Can the Liberals help themselves by having Carney in Quebec? Does that actually help? Like, I'm not certain his presence is what helps them. I think it's Donald Trump's presence is what helps Carney. So is he going to invoke Donald Trump all day long in some way that feels like real and decisive to voters? Or am I wrong? It's just having him there good. Like, what's the value of having him in Quebec?
Well, it does
How does that
appear, I mean,
help?
to riff off your point, I mean, I don't know whether he helps or hurts personally. I presume he still helps, to be honest. But the issue is that it was the threat from Trump that was disciplining the Quebec electorate not to vote Bloc. And so that is what must be, I think, Scott, recaptured for the Liberals, is the threat of Trump.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it seems less about Carney and more about the circumstances of how threatened people feel, and it's just not been in the news.
All right. Any other thoughts on that polling before I have a question for
Do you have BC?
I do. You know what? I do have BC. I have to go to my crosstabs to get it. Chat amongst yourselves.
To say we can just make a note for all the future days. I'm always going to ask about BC.
Right. Well, it's gonna be key for the NDP, like what's happening there, because I think as you see the NDP go up, at least my working assumption when we see the NDP going up in BC is it's not going up evenly. It's going up disproportionately, probably on the island and in a few other areas where they have strength, like where they really are two-way races with the Conservatives traditionally, and probably in this election too. But those are the first places where the NDP will see growth if they see growth.
Yep,
in
that
my
sounds
view.
right to me. Yep, I think that's what's going on.
So Polera has 282 cases in British Columbia. So take that as you will.
Yeah.
Plus or minus 10.
Teeny weeny.
Plus or minus 7, probably.
7.
Plus or minus 7. 46 Liberal, 34 Conservative, 12 NDP. The NDP number, for what it's worth, is 8 in the Atlantic. 9 in the Atlantic, 5 in Quebec, 8 in Ontario, 12 in Manitoba, 6 in Saskatchewan, 9 in Alberta, and 12 in British Columbia.
Oh, when 12's the highlight, that's a sad day for the NDP, I think.
Jordan, I ran into a buddy last night who spent Easter weekend in Windsor, and he told me Brian Massey was going to lose. And I just say that so there's no chance that you can enjoy any aspect of your day, all of which is to come.
Well, thank you.
But that surprised me
Scott.
because I start to think about what are the safe NDP ridings. But I guess, the auto issue was dominant there.
The auto issue is huge. Now, on the other hand, I would say I have never met a harder or more locally focused canvasser and MP than Brian Massey. So I wouldn't necessarily bet against him. He's doing his own thing down there. He always has. And that seat's proven durable for the NDP. So we'll see.
Yep.
So here's a question, Kory.
Mhm.
Should Mark Carney go to the Pope's funeral this weekend?
Oof. No.
What?
No?
Why would he go?
Why would he go to the Pope's funeral? God, you
Who
Catholics,
thinks this is a
Jesus,
good idea?
man, why would he
I-
spend 2 days at the Pope's funeral and do what?
Well,
Talk about Donald Trump?
I
Like, how would
assume
he work
to
that into the
hobnob with world
conversation?
leaders, but there's work to do here. Moreover, like there's a lot of danger, and like let's assume Trump's going. There's a lot of danger being in the room with that guy, right? And
Trump's only going. He said he's looking forward to it.
oh well, that's
Yeah.
what most people say about funerals.
I guess when JD Vance laid the path.
Coincidence? I don't know. Ask the internet. I'm sure there's only a million conspiracy
God,
theories
that's
about
funny.
that now.
That's
Look,
so funny.
I think there's
He
lots
was
of
a
things
very
that
nice man. I'm looking forward to his death and his being gone.
yeah, well, what can you say? I, look, I think what Carney needs to be doing is talking more about what change looks like if he's elected, and I'd be framing myself more as a new prime minister and jettisoning as much of the former administration bullshit and talking points and patter as possible, which is kind of what we've been saying for the last couple of days. I don't think that anybody in the campaign's listening very closely to any of that. But this is a change election still in many, many respects, and it's a safe hands election vis-a-vis Trump, and it's a rally around the flag, election in some ways, and it's an affordability election in some ways. But I think, underlying a lot of that is a desire for a change from the very unpopular Trudeau government. And yes, Mark Carney is not Justin Trudeau. Like, I think people accept that. But I think the Conservatives have been chipping away on a narrative of, 4 more years for the Liberal government. I think they've been pulling Poilievre out of their advertising increasingly, focusing more on that message. And at the same time, I think the Carney campaign has, started running the victory lap before the race is over a little bit and talking about how we were right all along, implicitly in terms of fronting a bunch of policies that either didn't work or weren't very popular from the Trudeau era. And I think all of that's a mistake. I thought he was way more on track at the beginning of the campaign when he was talking about how he was going to be doing things differently, how we were going to be focusing on the economy and internal trade, and how we were going to have one approval for major projects, and we were going to get the economy going, and how, and I think like those are the messages that were driving them forward at the beginning of the campaign, and they just seem to be lost in this word salad of Trudeau era bullshit now.
What's the case for going to the Pope's funeral, David?
Prime Minister. His best role.
I don't know. No,
I mean, Prime Minister.
I
don't think it's a good case, by the way.
No,
but
and I think it's the wrong type of prime minister thing. Like, he was getting mileage out of doing prime ministerial things vis-a-vis Trump, not general prime ministerial things. I think it would be a big mistake to absent himself, like more frankly than he's already maybe narratively absented himself from the last part of the campaign. And it would give Poilievre an open net to score in the last weekend leading into Election Day. And I wonder, just to Kory's point, it seems to me that at some point the Liberal campaign seems to maybe not fully understand what Canadians are hiring Carney for. Like, he's not being hired because of his mastery on all policy files. He's not being hired because he has a blueprint for a whole of government plan on any of these things. He's being hired for exactly one job, and that is to take on Donald Trump. And he had exactly one other test to pass, which was to demonstrate that he was changed from Justin Trudeau, which he successfully did in the first part of the campaign. But he can't now spend the latter part of the campaign disproving that thesis. And I'm curious what you both think, because it seems to me that the decisions that are being made in the last half of the campaign here are detached from what the exact selling proposition of a Carney prime ministership is.
As the Trump administration continues disrupting the Canada-US trade relationship, it's reassuring to know CANDU reactors are Canadian designed, and they're helping to ensure our energy security. CANDU reactors have been powering the Canadian economy for more than 60 years. Current CANDUs have been updated and modernized to meet today's standards, but there's a need to build new reactors in Ontario to buttress our existing high-functioning fleet and help secure our energy independence with clean baseload power. These reactors also provide critical access to life-saving medical isotopes used in hospitals across Canada and around the world. Unlike other large reactor technologies that rely on foreign sources of enriched uranium, CANDU reactors use natural uranium mined and prepared in Canada. President Trump can't mess with our fuel. Equally important, the construction of the next generation of large reactors in Ontario help ensure our skilled manufacturing base of high-paying union jobs, threatened by Trump's tariffs, will be in demand as we build a fleet of reactors in the decades to come. These large CANDU reactors will provide Ontario with much-needed additional power. At the same time, investments in small modular reactors will be necessary too, particularly in remote locations for resource development. CANDU technology, designed by Canadians, built by Canadians, for the benefit of Canadians. Let's get moving. You know that I think that's all true, and that I've been saying that for days, and I agree. Yesterday was another day that was a little inexplicable to me in terms of the message. I liked some of the visuals, but the message was a little hard for me to understand. But at the end of the day, that campaign's not what I'm thinking about right now, because he's at 50 points in Ontario. And that has been steady through the campaign. That's not moved at all. And, Paul got 46% of the vote in Ontario and 75 seats in 2004. And I've always been damn proud of that result. But 50 points, holy mother. That's going to be a big win in Ontario. And like I said, it's been so steady. Like, if you are in the Conservative campaign, what can you now say to Ontarians that might possibly move that number? Because it has to move, and it has to move a lot in 5 days.
Yeah, to be clear, I don't think the Liberals are in any danger of not winning a majority government here. That's not my takeaway. I think it's more about the closing message that Carney's campaign is
You
offering.
would say that.
It's factually true. I mean, tell me what is the path for the Conservatives with these numbers in Ontario?
I don't know, Scott. We would be in the Conservative war room, sort of like desperately throwing shit at the wall right now.
Well, you would produce shit like that golf ad. You would, because like they are losing the demographics that would provide them any last surge in the closing days of this campaign.
Well, maybe that's a segue to their platform, because I worry that from a Conservative perspective, I worry that their platform day will be a lost day, just as the Liberal platform was, in the sense that it seems to me the dynamic for its reception is baked in. He's going to cut all the taxes that Carney is, plus the industrial tax and a deeper personal income tax. He's going to spend as much on defense, at least. He's going to spend as much. So, I mean, the joke off the top about how many consultants are there, how much they're going to have some fictional growth number combined with some fictional efficiencies and savings number in order to square the circle.
As did the Liberals, but theirs will have to be more egregious even. But who will
exactly? So they'll get chased around on that. Now, I wonder, though, if they'll take the advice you tendered yesterday, David, which is instead of trying to make it about everything in their platform, whether they try to surface an issue that they think works for them, so that they'll release their platform, but really they're going to make an announcement today on something that they think, they put one big shiny new thing in the window and try to distract on that. I don't know what that thing would be, but mechanically, as an approach to the day, that would probably make more sense. But like that ad tells us where they're at strategically. They need to, the most gettable voter pool that they've lost is older men, 55-year-old men. Do you hear what Jack? I love that line in there. I've been wondering what I liked about it so much. So I watched it again last night, and there's the one line where the guy goes, "Oh, did you hear what Mark Carney had to say?" The other guy reacts venomously, but for a second, the guy is on board the Carney train, right? Like he's like, "Well, did you hear what Mark Carney had to say?" Eh? Like, what? That they're gonna like make half your children trans, that they're gonna like take all your tax paying money and just eat it for liberal breakfast. What's that fucker Mark Carney got to say? But
I thought you were going
don't
to
know.
say that you liked the like Viagra ad energy of it.
It for certain was like, oh, I had to put a down payment on Linda's house, and my boy can't find a job, and well, Jesus, I haven't set sail in quite a while either. Eh? Me and Nancy aren't having too much fun when the lights go down. Like it was very 56 years old.
Oh my God, Kory, you look so serious.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm still caught on this this Pope funeral thought, and just reflecting on it. That is the kind of trip that Trudeau would take. That's the biggest reason not to do it, because it is actually not about something of substance per se. It's going to a place to be seen. It's like, a morbid version of going to the Cannes Film Festival or something, where there's going to be a gazillion foreign reporters and pictures taken and the right crowd being at it and all of that, but in which nothing of substance or of economic or political impact to Canada is going to take place. That's the kind of Trudeau trip.
Bilats. You could organize bilats
At a funeral. That's kind of tacky.
God, remind me not to
That
invite
is
you to my
actually not
funeral,
the
David.
first time that allegation has been laid against me, Kory.
Yeah, I just I don't know. It's a potential to make some contrast, perhaps, in terms of not going and why you're not and what you're focusing on. But I don't think that this would be a question if we were in this campaign and Trudeau was still the Liberal leader. I think he'd be there in a heartbeat.
I'm not sure it's a worse option than talking about how the Conservatives are going to cut pharmacare, though, or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we'll see what happens with the Conservative platform. Like I agree with what you guys said in terms of there'll be, some wizardry in terms of growth and and spending cuts that are non-offensive, but not that they'll be bickering over. I also think they're probably going to ramp up the military slower than what the Liberals have, just based on what's come out over the course of the campaign. I think the Liberals are saying 2027 and Conservatives are saying 2030. That's an interesting point of contrast in my mind. As I think there's a lot of opportunity in terms of the bad news that we're getting around tariffs and all of that to reprofile some of Canadian industry towards meeting that target in a way that'll actually soften the blow on our economy. But whatever, we'll see. But I'm not sure it's a particularly good day for the Conservatives either, which is why we were talking yesterday about, why are you even doing it? I think the Conservatives won the platform battle 2-0 without having put out a platform. I don't know why you would want to play another end. It's
I mean,
I'm not sure you're going to get anything more.
Part of the challenge is that the Liberals have scooped a lot of the Conservative commitments. So, housing commitments are pretty similar. The GST off homes, mucking around with development charges, that's pretty similar. Ending the carbon tax, pretty similar. Ending the capital gains. So it's also going to be interesting to see what contrasts pop out of that, right? So for the Conservatives, the Liberals will be making it all about the cuts that, frankly, I think their campaign has kind of trapped themselves into with this dollar for dollar formula. There's an open target right there on anything that they're putting in their platform because it allows their opponents to go out and come out with a figure of what they're going to cut. So I just I don't see a huge advantage for the Conservatives in doing this. I think it's a lot of downside risk for them, which makes it curious that they felt the need to do it.
You
How do
know,
you get Trump back into this campaign? That's the issue. I mean, yesterday, one of the things I was so frustrated by is that Trump, halfway through the day, sets world markets on fire by suggesting that he wants to shit can, the Fed chair, and the Liberal campaign doesn't try to even try to find a way to plug into it. Like, to me, I thought that was bananas. Like, you had a natural opportunity, and I know it's a little more esoteric. It's not like a direct attack on Canada, but like I would take the slightest opportunity, and a 3% dive in the markets isn't that slight, to like come hard on it.
It's not slight at
here you are
all.
sitting around trying to think about how the Liberals can win by more than 8 points. Okay, and that's a worthy thing to be thinking about. But fuck the Conservatives. Ontario locked in at the beginning of this campaign at about 50% for the Liberals, and it's not moved. It's not moved at all, no matter what's happened in this campaign, advertising, announcements, platforms, debates, nothing. So you're not talking about, if you're the Conservatives, anything incremental that might make a difference. They've got to put some explosives in there and crack that foundation. What can they do?
Well, they may not accept your premise. So I think the Conservatives think that it's actually a 2 point gap nationally, and that they're much closer, and that they're traditionally understated by about 2 to 3% in terms of polls. Plus, they think that their voter turnout model is going to be stronger, and they're going to actually end up winning 41 to 39.
In Ontario.
Well, I think nationally, and so then the problem is that the seat hall still ends up.
Yeah, it's still
But
that's
like,
not
don't you
enough,
think getting
right?
Trump back into it isn't just? It's not just about trying to go from 8
they
to
lose
11.
the election at those numbers,
That's
41,
right.
39. They
Yeah.
lose the election.
My
Right.
defense of trying to focus on the Liberals and Trump is that that's what caused the dynamic in Quebec. And I think that's the best way to I mean, first of all, you're not talking about reversing it. You're just talking because it's still mid-slide. We don't know where it ends. It could be 5 by election day or 2. So you've got to do something to halt it. And I don't know if just being present in Quebec and speaking French poorly is going to do the trick.
Well, I agree with David's statement off the top that Quebec is going to determine whether it's a majority or not. I think the other complicated thing about this is the more the national numbers tighten, and what's driving it, maybe it's some growth of the NDP in BC at the expense of the Liberals, and growth of the Bloc in Quebec at the expense of the Liberals. And so you're not seeing the Conservative number go up. You're seeing the Liberal number go down because progressive parties in Quebec and largely in BC are unlending their vote to the Liberals in increasing numbers. So that'll give you better splits, and maybe in BC you pick up a few more there if you're the Conservatives. But the fundamental issue is the one that you raised. It's you got to do better in Ontario, and you're a bit hamstrung. Like, I think they're smart to pull Poilievre from the ads, because I think in Ontario, when you're looking at the positive and negative ratings of the leaders and who people think the best PM is going to be, Poilievre's is a ballot drag, and a significant ballot drag in that province. So how do you do that without using your leader as the front man? It's more challenging. But the issue set, if it's Trump, that's going to be the best thing for the Liberals. I don't see any sign that their campaign is acting in a way that accepts that premise. I agree with you, Scott, that they had a huge opening yesterday with the firing the head of the Fed and market disruption and all of that to, convene a meeting of cabinet about it, talk about, what's going to happen with impacts on borrowing in Canada or whatever. Like, look, I'm not the former bank governor. I'm sure he can think of a bunch of things to say on this that are smarter than me. But the reality is they didn't do any of that.
It's just a run-of-the-mill Liberal campaign now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, which is not
That's
a
what
good
it is now.
campaign.
It's just
which is not a good
pharmacare
campaign.
and
And their ads still
yesterday
suck.
was an attack day on Conservatives. Really, it was hey, they're going to cut. It was a strange day.
Well, it was kind of an attempt, right? No, it was like we're releasing our health platform day
Yeah,
with
but really, it was
small
these are the
side of
programs
attack.
that we've brought you that he's going to cut. And no matter what he says tomorrow on his platform, he's going to cut pharmacare, dental, and
well,
if you're
and a
if you're
big
talking
thank
about
you to the Carney campaign for making that an issue,
if
because that is
you're
like that gives my people life, right? Like they're
if you're
choosing a topic that is not that helpful to them.
well, if you're talking about things that the last Liberal government did and the record, you are way, way, way off your narrative if you're Mark Carney's campaign. Way off your narrative.
you know what that campaign needs, Kory? It needs a song. You were the song man. You were the song campaign man. You brought jingles back
Please,
to
God,
Canadian
no.
politics. You got to get your ass to Ottawa and tell those people, shake some sense into them and give them a song.
Maybe that's
Mark
what
Carney for Canada, hooray! Trump away! Come on, let's go. We gotta pound this out. Let's get the piano. You get a pencil and some song sheets.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm up to that task. But maybe we'll do a song competition for the prime ministership to be like a giant episode of The
It'll be like
Voice.
Eurovision.
So awesome.
Anyways, your son Jack, does he speak French? Because I mean, the Liberals need a killer piece of creative in Quebec for the close.
No, he doesn't. It's been a long time since he was in French immersion. I think that's gone from him.
Well,
I don't know who has the capacity, but you need a killer piece of creative to reset this frame in Quebec around the threat from Trump and the whole Maître chez nous thing that Carney was riffing off of at the beginning that was working so well for him in Quebec, right? But I mean, boy, there does seem to be a lot of people in this campaign that want to prove a point other than that Mark Carney should be the prime minister.
yeah. Or they're just trapped in the routine of doing events and writing scripts for events and having media lines that are comfortable because they've been doing them for 8 years. And they should take Ian Brody's advice from the beginning of the campaign, which anything that was done before Donald Trump goes in the shredder, and you start again from a blank sheet of paper, and you write a script and a narrative and a stump speech, and you adhere to it with the discipline that a winning campaign has.
But it's a reflection of this micro-targeting thesis about campaigns, right? So instead of holding up the book that says "Stop Trump," they're folding over the corners on individual pages to say pharmacare or dental care.
But it's not that kind of campaign. This is not a micro policy campaign. This is a leadership campaign, right? And I mean, what it also seems to me is that there's a big element of just marking time, right, in the Liberal campaign right now. They are just hoping it holds and waiting, right? And I think it's a mistake. It mistakes what the appeal is.
That's why my room full of worries.
Thought it was a Winnebago.
I like to sit every day.
Never want to
it is,
yes.
I'll drive it around.
All right.
Drive it to the beer store.
Reid, give us a blessing or a curse.
A blessing or a curse. You know what? I'm gonna go back to that conservative ad because I've been thinking more and more and more about it, and I have heard from regular people, not us, like, oh, here's what I think crowd, like from regular folk. I was talking all day yesterday, and I want to give a blessing to that ad. I know it's getting a lot of blowback, but boy, it's getting a lot of chatter. People have noticed that ad, that old men golfing ad, the Viagra ad, the Jesus Christ, I can't get it up, maybe I better vote against Carney ad. And I don't know if it's going to work or not, but I know that it's punched through. And I do think it was smart of them to take Polyev out of their advertising, especially when we talk about, I mean, one of the things in all that discussion about Ontario that we didn't mention, I think, one of the problems for them in Ontario is Polyev. And therefore, one of the things that I think works particularly well in that ad is there's no Polyev.
Do you think he would have suggested that, or would he have fought that?
Does he look like someone who would voluntarily take himself out of ads?
I think his idea of an ad is him reading like what he thinks is like, Ode to a Grecian Urn at soaring, sweeping levels.
All right. Jordan, you got a blessing or a curse?
I do. But also maybe a curse on the Conservatives for also explicitly hiring non-union talent for that ad. Ooh. So go stand with Leuna all you want, but that stuff is dumb. You don't need to make those decisions. So actually, I have a blessing going out to all of the folks who in their communities are working for Election Canada as DROs and ROs. I went to vote yesterday at the advance. I went at 8 p.m. on a rainy, cold holiday Monday morning, and I waited for 40 minutes in line
Wow.
to vote. Now, I live in Ottawa Centre. We are weird people here. Turnout was like 80% last election, so I wouldn't like read too much into the case of one. But those workers were dealing with a lot of people who were very grumpy about the wait. Friends, they do not choose how many polling locations are at a given spot. So let's, please be nice to the little old ladies and the students who are working. We really appreciate their work. It is super important for our election. So a blessing out to everybody who's doing that work this campaign.
Nice one. All right, Kory.
Well, I was going to throw, with the exception of Scott's son, a curse towards the Liberal ad campaign and people putting it together. I think it's just lost the plot and in terms of what was driving things for the campaign, and I think with the exception of the one attack ad that they were running at the beginning of the campaign, I think it's been completely unmemorable.
Yeah, I agree.
You know what's wrong with Mark Carney? You know what Mark Carney says? They don't have they should have one. You know what Peter Poilievre says, hey? He says jail them all.
My curse goes out to myself, and Scott and I are officially barred from ever commenting on the Central Nova riding again. Now, it turns out that we have a lot of listeners in Nova Scotia, and some weeks ago, Scott opined that he thought that Peter MacKay was going to give Sean Fraser a good run for his money in that riding. Turns out Peter MacKay is not the candidate in that riding. And yesterday, when Mark Carney was in Truro, I said he was trying to help Sean Fraser. Now, Truro, it turns out, is not in the riding. And they're actually trying to take Cumberland Colchester. I heard this from quite a few Nova Scotians yesterday. And I just want to say that when I worked in that riding in 1983, Truro was in that riding. Now, maybe some things have changed in Nova Scotia since 1983. I'm not sure. Seemed like a pretty conservative, static place to me, but maybe things have been changing. In any event, Scott, you and I, no more Central Nova. We have demonstrated we know fuck nothing about that riding. Don't get to talk about it anymore.
Yeah, you know what this means, David? It means that we have to resurrect this idea of doing our coast to coast curse of politics train trip.
Yeah,
there we go.
As parents, David and I experience, guys.
Becoming
we gotta go through Central Nova.
We got to update your fantasy football Atlantic Canada edition.
We're going to fly into St. John's and visit the people of Nova Scotia.
I was in Montreal once. Ask me about politics.
All right. Thanks to our sponsors, CN Rail, Can-Do, and Enbridge. Lovely spending the morning with you three. Thanks for showing up. And all of you accursed who are listening. We'll be back tomorrow. Things getting close, though, and almost over. You're almost rid of us on a morning basis. Just a few days left. All right. We'll see you tomorrow. Take care.